Alright everyone, it is Dokkan time again, and today's how to build video is going to be for the newly super easy-aid Omega Shenron. Now, Omega Shenron is actually pretty decent, but at the same time he's also, I'd honestly call him kind of a hassle. But anyways, before we really get into that, if you're new to the channel, I generally talk about Dokkan builds, hidden potential builds for units and how to use them. I make Dragonball based videos and try to promote more of a positive mindset and try to make you laugh along the way. Maybe I'll have a cup of tea while I'm at it. If that sounds good to you and you enjoy the video, be sure to minus energy ball the frickin' like and subscribe button, and let's go ahead and get into it. So, you know how this goes if you're not new here, but we go through the breakdown of the unit, we go through the defense numbers, and then we go through you know, roles and build suggestions and equipment if they have it. So, 200% leader options go. He doesn't have a lot. I'm going to be real with you. He doesn't have much at all, really. It's really unfortunate. You see that there's like 6 leaders here, but I'm going to be real with you. The only one that you can run this guy on is definitely the new LR Physical Omega's team, which just by that standard, if you play this game, you understand that that is both good and bad at the same time. We'll get into that when we get into his kit. I don't suggest him on any other team, really. I mean, you can throw him onto other teams. I just do not suggest it, really. I mean, you could throw him onto an Inhuman Deeds team if you absolutely need to. I think you can utilize this unit in some unique ways. But anyways, this is a super easy A. So he doesn't change his leader skill or his super attack, unfortunately. He really needed a super attack change, but it is what it is. So as far as his leader skill go, he is a key +4 STR type HP attack and defense of 100%. He's an old Neo God leader. Now as far as passive skill goes, he has attack and defense of 150%. All enemies are minus 40% attack, and then defense minus 20% if they're super class enemies as well. Now, full power or GT boss category allies get key +2, attack +40%, and an additional attack +20% for extreme class. So, I don't think there's an extreme class or a super class GT boss, but whatever. Basically, that's a 60% supportive unit right there for GT bosses and full power as long as they're extreme. 40% if they're super. And then per extreme class ally attacking in the same turn, self-excluded unfortunately. Chance of performing a crit and damage reduction rate of 20%. That means as long as they're extreme class rotation, it's 40% crit and 40% damage reduction. Now attack and defense of 100% when attacking. And when there's a full power or GT boss category ally in the same turn, attack and defense of 150 has a 70% chance of super attacking. When attacking with 12 or more key, attack and defense of 100%. And as the third attacker in a turn, or when the target enemy is in the following status of lowered attack and defense, attack plus 150% and launches an additional super. So by default, this guy has the ability to quad super attack, which is 4 super attacks in a turn with the hidden potential system, of course. He is lowering the enemy's attack and defense. He is buffing allies by 60%. So overall, this guy is one heck of a supportive unit with some good damage. Now, Brutal Beatdown, Fear and Faith, Big Bad Bosses, Shocking Speed, GT, and Shadow Dragons and Fierce Battle are his link sets. He's not on a lot of categories, unfortunately. Battle Fate, GT Bosses, Power Absorption, Inhuman Deeds, Full Power, and Shadow Dragon Saga. Now, his link partners is honestly the worst part because his only actual link partner, in my opinion, is straight up this Tech Sin Shenron, which is very surprisingly good. But unfortunately, neither of these two are a slot 1 unit. And personally, when I suggest a partner to a unit, they need a slot 1 option. Omega does not have a slot 1 option at the time of recording, unfortunately. Maybe in the future we get some other Shadow Dragons or some EZAs for Super 17s or something. But unfortunately, although he has options with like LR Shadow Dragons and so forth as like partners, he unfortunately is kind of doomed to the slot 3 position because of being on a team that focuses around, well, himself. Because you be rocking double physical Omega literally 90% of the time, this means that this fool needs to stay on rotation to keep up his support. If you don't know what his support is purely right here. Right here. Right here. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Right here. Yeah. With Rainbow Key Sphere obtained, Extreme Class Allies, defense of 70%, and additional 10% damage reduction for GT Boss category allies for 2 turns. So that is a 20% increase on damage reduction and a 140% increase to defense. This is huge and mandatory for this character. Unless you're abusing his passive to lower the enemy's attack and defense, unless you're using him as a link battery or for actually lowering the enemy's defense for a very specific mission or something or event, then by no means do I ever suggest running him on a not LR Physical Omega team. So long as LR Physical Omega has a playable status in the game, so does this guy. But anyways, with that being said, let's go look at his defense numbers so you can kind of gain an understanding of why I'm saying this. Now we're over here with Blood Raven again for the defense numbers here. The big thing here is that he needs to be run with double Omega Shenron. Double physical Omega Shenron to get that support off. Now, he doesn't have any actual equipment for him, so the best thing you could give him is a like level 5 plus defense orb, and I do suggest you do that, by the way. But otherwise, without support, full extreme GT boss ally, start a turn defense on super attack, only 1.8 million defense with 70% support, and everything else on super attack 2.8 million, and then with 140% support, which would be double Omega, 2.5 million defense on super. So that alone is 2.5 is not very big. Yes, he has 60% damage reduction, but that means he can only tank a 5 million super, because the way damage reduction works is that it cuts the damage in half. And because he only has 2.5, that's all he's tanking is 2.5. So if any damage comes through above 5 million, he's taking that damage. There is no if and or buts about that. His primary support is Omega, and that is with Omega's support. So he's actually kind of a dodge or die on a super attack basis. It's either that or you have to have some other form of support coming in to protect him, or you need more defense orbs to really help and protect him with that. There's no counters, no dodge. He has no built-in defense mechanics to actually save him. It is purely based on the fact that he is running with LR Physical Omega. Now, I think the way the developers intended for this to work out is that they intended you to take this guy into events where you can lower the enemy's attack. So as long as the enemy's attack gets lowered for their super attack being less than 6 million, basically, less than 5.5 at worst, then he can theoretically tank just about whatever. It really just depends on that. He doesn't get defense on super. He doesn't have any other form of damage reduction in his links. And the only other partner that could help his defense would be the LR Shadow Dragons. But the support from the LR Shadow Dragons probably isn't going to be enough of an increase defense-wise to actually save him from like a 6 million super, which is something to think about because that's kind of starting to become the new norm. So, but I will definitely say that he has an absurd level of damage. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and use Halvard's post here as like a key marker here, but he is very surprised at the level of damage that Omega can output here. We're talking 70 to 80 mil damage here. This is a lot of damage, guys. This is, of course, buffed up with Omega and, you know, probably a couple other things to go around it. He's linked with Tex in Shenron, of course. So, I mean, this is a pretty good damage scaling here. This is what you kind of want to aim for. You want to aim for getting those additionals off and try to just kill the enemy before they kill you. That's just the way you want to do it with Omega. You want his support to really break down the enemy so he can knock down that defense and finish off the enemy. So, but anyways, I'm kind of rambling on at this point. So let's just go ahead and move on to his build suggestions. Now, as far as his 55% option goes, no dupes. I would just honestly throw like a crit at him. There's nothing else to do at 55%. He's not doing too much else. You might as well throw an attack orb at him in this instant because defense won't do much for it. It will not save him. A defense orb will not save him on a super attack. You just need to kill the enemy before they kill you. Or know that only a normal is coming out. Because he can survive all the normals for days. Nothing wrong with that. But as far as moving on to like a one dupe build, which is always going to be the bottom right hand path, by the way, always go bottom right hand path with one dupe. I would suggest building into additional because of the level of damage he can do, and because he already has a little bit of built-in crit. I would suggest just going into additional level 9 naturally, and then put the last node into a crit. So that would be level 8 naturally crit and level 14 with equipment on additional. Now, alternatively, you can change the silver orb into a crit orb, or you can, by all means, change the additional into dodge. That is completely fine. It is a player preference at that point. It's just based on how I use units, based on their roles on the team. When I use Omega, it's going to be under the instance that I don't expect the enemy to survive if he appears on rotation, or I'm going to attempt to protect him if he does appear on rotation. It's one of the two. I don't use units like everybody else and force them into situations that they cannot handle. I throw them into situations that I know they will handle and I know they will survive in, or at least I will make sure I know how to make them to survive. So, if you want to go the dodge route, go ahead, change that additional by all means. But if you're going to be doing that, then there's no point in going into additional, and you're just going to go with his passive additional. So, moving on from that, if you have up to 2 dupes and above, I do suggest, once again, that you just kind of lean into the additional route of level 25, and then level 11 naturally on a crit. I don't suggest really pressing the crit too much. You know, you'll have the passive, and then the hidden potential will get your crit up to a 50% chance. If you really want to go extra on him, you could give him an attack orb again, focus a little bit more on the crit, and then put the rest into additional if you really want to make sure your attacks are critting. But I was focusing up more on the additional in this case to do overall DPS. I suggested a defense orb in this case, mostly because if you have him rainbowed, I think the defense orb will help enough, just enough, to actually survive a good decent amount of supers. Mostly because in the face of being 220% HP numbers, we're getting like 800k HP plus. And with this extra defense orb at a full max rainbowed status, you could potentially live a 6 million super just by getting a little bit of excess defense in there. So I do think it's definitely a survivable state at that point. But if you have anything less than a rainbow, then you might as well just chuck an attack orb onto here. You might even want to just replace one of these silvers into a crit orb to maximize his critical and damage potential to try and kill the enemy beforehand. This guy is a very, very tilting kind of unit. He can be absurdly good, but also underwhelming at the same time. You're constantly teetering back and forth with this guy. And the issue really does come down to the point of the fact that he is Omega by name, so he can't link with the new Omega, so he's constantly just stuck to, well, kind of the worst position he can be in, which is going to be a slot 3 position. I wish he wasn't trapped to slot 3, but he just is. He's straight up trapped to slot 3. With that being said, we're moving on to role tips here. As far as his role in the fight, as I said, I think he's more of a damage dealer. And his leader options go, you can throw him out. I don't suggest it, but these are teams you can throw him onto. I think his only sole team is literally LR Physical Omega. I just threw these guys and kept these guys on here because, well, there's not really any other options. As far as his partners go, if you absolutely have to keep him on rotation, LR Rose is the only one to actually be a slot 1 unit to him, and that's just because he has big bad bosses and nothing more. And then Tech Sin, of course, is his best link partner. You're going to want to aim for big bad bosses, Fear and Faith, and GT links specifically with him. But unfortunately, I think his best slot position is, unfortunately, slot 3. He doesn't stack. He supports. He's primarily a supportive damage dealer. If he just did a little bit more across the board, I think we could have probably put him in the support category. But he has no major defense numbers, and it was honestly hard to kind of make a build for him because it's very, very finicky based on your dupe percentage. It's very finicky, and he can lean towards being a focused damage dealer, or he can lean towards a defensive, or not defensive, but more of a supportive role. This right here is basically the middle ground. This right here is straight up the middle ground. That's what this is. Full on additional to try and get more damage out, praying that the 50-50 chance of getting a super or a critical hit coming in, and then the bronze orb to just barely survive super attacks on a full rainbow basis. If I had to rebuild this with less than full rainbow, like I said, I would probably focus more on crit and then put an attack orb on him to make sure that he actually can do more. So, ooh. Oh boy. Honestly, I like this guy. I just don't like his only team option being only one option, and I kind of wish that he could stay on rotation. And maybe he will in the future, but as of right now, he's just kind of stuck to slot 3 on LR Physical Omega's team. But anyways, everyone, I just wanted to know what teams you're going to go with this guy. What's the highest amount of damage you went with him? Are you going to try and give him a defense or make him maybe survive certain super attacks? Or are you actually just going to go for like straight on full on damage with him? I'm very curious because this is one of those units where he can scale one way or the other in a lot of instances. So anyways, everyone, thank you for watching. I hope you have a good day and a good night.